Hey everybody. Today we're going to talk about ordering numbers from least to greatest or greatest to least. Usually we do least to greatest. So we did a few problems like this at the beginning of the trimester, right? Where we have some integers here. We want to put them from least to greatest. -7, that's my most negative number, so that's going to be my least, right? -2 is also negative, but it's greater than -7. Then comes 0. Remember, that's not negative and it's not positive either. And then 1, and then 9. Least to greatest with integers. But you might remember in class lately we've been doing a bunch of stuff with different kinds of numbers. Decimals, fractions, mixed numbers, both positive and negative. So today we're going to talk about ordering those. In order to do that, it's really important that we understand the relationship between decimals and fractions. Almost all numbers can be written as both fractions and decimals. For instance, if we have 1/2, right, we can write that as 0.5. A lot of people know that one. We're going to take a look at some of the other common fractions that we need to be able to know how to do. For instance, 1/3, we can write as 0.3 repeating. That means that 3 goes on forever, just keeps repeating. And 2/3 we can write as 0.6 repeating. Make sure you got that decimal there. Mine's kind of small. Okay. Now with fourths, right? We know 1/4 is 0.25. Most people know that. 2/4 is the same as 1/2. That's just 0.5. 3/4 is 0.75. Those are good to know. Now with fifths count up by 0.2 each time. So 1/5 is 0.2. 2/5 is 0.4. 3/5 is 0.6, and so on. 4/5 is 0.8. Okay. And let's do tenths, just because tenths follow a pretty predictable pattern too. 1/10 is 0.1. 2/10 is 0.2, right? I think you get the pattern. 7/10 is 0.7. Okay, so let's see how this is actually going to help us do what we're going to try to do. All right, 3 examples, and then we're going to get out of here. So I want to compare this first example up here. I want to compare these numbers. We're going to list them from least to greatest. So I have 5, I have 0.6, I have -2 2/3, and I have -24. Now, when we're comparing numbers, I think it's really important to be looking at all of the numbers in the same form, right? So we have 5, we have 0.6, now we have -2 2/3. So if we use that table I just gave, I can change this to -2, and that 2/3 is going to be 0.6, and the 6 repeats forever. And then we have -24. So now that I have everything written as an integer or a decimal, these are a lot easier to compare. So here I have -24. That's my most negative number. So that's going to come first. On my number line, that would be my most negative, my furthest left number. I only have one other negative number, -2.6, so that must come next. We're getting closer to 0. Now we're into our positive numbers. I got 0.6 and 5. I know 0.6 is less than 5. 0.6. Make sure that looks like a decimal, not a comma. Close enough. And 5 is my last number. Okay? In our second example, we're going to do pretty much the same thing. We have 4.5, -3/4, -2.1, and 0.5. This is going to be easier if we change that -3.4 to a decimal. So -3/4, using our table, it's going to be negative, and 3/4 is 0.75. Then I have -2.1, and I have 0.5. So I have 2 negative numbers. I got -0.75 and -2.1. -2.1 is more negative. It's going to be further left on my number line, negative 2.1, because negative 0.75 is going to be between 0 and negative 1. Okay, now I have 0.5 and 4.5. 0.5 comes next, and then 4.5. Okay, now this last example here, this is a little blurry, but we're going to be able to follow along, okay? So this problem is looking at a star's color index. So the color index of a star helps us find the temperature of the star. And the way it works is that the greater the color index, the cooler the star is. And the lower the color index, the hotter the star is. So this says order the stars in the table from hottest to coolest. The hottest star is going to have the lowest color index. So I have two negatives here. I got negative 0.03 that says, and negative 0.22. Negative 0.22, that's my lowest. And then my next number is negative 0.03. And now I'm in the positive range. I got 0.09 is less than 0.21. The main takeaway from today is that in order to put numbers in order from least to greatest, it's best if we write all of our numbers as decimals and integers. Because if we're going to put fractions in order from least to greatest, we have to get the common denominator for all of the fractions, and it's just a lot of work. But by turning them into decimals, it can make this work a lot easier.